Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine Reichman, your host, and today we have Nona Lim. Welcome, Nona. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nona. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this podcast. It's exciting to have you here as we talk about the future of food, and I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about you and all the things that you're working on.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to share them, and
Yeah, I know we spoke briefly when we got on the phone today, and I got to learn a little bit more about what you're planning for the future. But for our guests here today that are not familiar with Nona Lim, the brand, or you, maybe you can tell them, you could just give them a little background about you and about Nona Lim.
absolutely. So the company itself is my name. It's called Nona Lim, and an Asian platform with lots of different nourishing comfort food like rice noodles, Asian flavored bone broths, and ramen noodles. So I'm from Singapore originally. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm not American. Well, I didn't grow up in America. So I grew up in Singapore, spent about 8 years working in London before moving to the Bay Area. And the company started actually, I won't quite call it accidental, but it wasn't entirely planned. So, yeah, when I first moved to the Bay Area, I was fencing competitively. So I also had a side hustle where I actually created the very first meal kit delivery business back in '06, before it was even trendy. So I know that was like before Blue Apron and anything else existed. So I created that category, but was doing it as a side hustle, didn't raise any money. So, I don't think it went really very far beyond kind of the Bay Area. So I did
What was
that.
that one called?
It was called Cook SF then.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was very small because I didn't really focus a lot on customer acquisition and all the things you should do with online business. So it was back then I was doing everything from gluten-free, dairy-free, using clean label ingredients, sustainable seafood back in '08 before it was even
You were ahead
trendy.
of the times.
Too ahead of the times. That's what I've learned along the years, which is don't be that innovative where you can't create a trend all by yourself. That's what I've learned along the way. So I was doing all of that. And what happened was that in 2012, I almost made the London Olympics, kind of lost by 1 point. I was so
Wait, I'm
upset.
sorry. Wait. Let's go back for a minute. You almost made the London Olympics?
Yeah, yeah, representing Singapore. I was at, the qualifications. I was fencing my
But
last part.
doing what?
Fencing, saber fencing.
Fencing.
Yes.
Wow, you were a fencer. Okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's really quite cool. Were you doing this since you were a little girl?
No, not at all. In fact, I did this, I did a little bit of it in high school and college, and then I stopped. I literally picked it up, right around in my late 20s, almost 30 by then. And so, and so when I was
Natural.
competing, I literally was competing with all my competitors were at least a decade younger than me. And some of them, were like, yeah, not quite half my age, but much, much younger. So I really needed to have, I would say, every single competitive edge to keep up with them, right? And many of them are like full-time athletes training 3 times a day, 5, 6 days a week. So I was kind of doing that, back then in my early 30s while, trying to have a side hustle business as well.
Okay, so you were in London doing, did you say finance?
I was in management consulting and software consulting.
Okay, so from consulting to fencing to food.
Yes.
That this is the what we're talking about here. Okay. So okay. So then you got your side hustle going and that was in food and that was your
Meal
delivery
kit
service.
delivery. Exactly, exactly. No, I even created this whole detox program called the elimination, based on the elimination diet that took out all the common food allergens. Because for me, as an athlete, I really felt that if I have the right nutrition, I would perform better. So I was really very focused then on kind of the whole concept of food as medicine, and especially growing up in Singapore. Even though I wasn't trained in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, it's something that I grew up with because my mom would make those wonderful, herbal soups and things like that,
Yes.
right? And so I kind of brought some of those philosophy here and end up getting to know, some nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, dietitians, and incorporated a bunch of those philosophies into my meal kit program. But then by 2012, I missed the London Olympics. I got really frustrated, upset, annoyed, gave up fencing, had a baby instead in 2013. And I kind of relooked at the business and decided, what do I want to do with my side hustle? By then I decided that honestly, even though it was getting very trendy by then, I felt that, the customer acquisition cost is really high, the packaging cost is really high, there's a lot of packaging. I'm not sure that I will be able to get it to a scale where it will be fully profitable and sustainable. And so I shut down that side of the business and actually launched a CPG in 2014. And so that's how the Nona Lim brand was born in 2014. And I took a lot of that same philosophy, which is something that you would think is kind of common sense, but it doesn't exist a lot for a very long time in, I would say, in consumer packaged goods, which is the fact that you can have products that taste fantastic, uh, is better for you, and is convenient, right? Usually you get one or the other, right? You get products that are really convenient, but it's full of unhealthy stuff,
It's
or,
true.
healthy stuff that doesn't taste very good. And so I wanted to bring the three together. And at the same time, I wanted to lean into my Asian roots, where I come from in Singapore. It's such a melting pot of different cultures. It's great food. I wanted to take a lot of that experience I grew up with, together with the wonderful ingredients that you get in Bay Area and the whole clean labor philosophy that is very prevalent in the Bay Area, and bring it together. And so what I decided to do is to kind of, I would say, try to clean up the Asian CPG space. And I did that with some of my early products. That's how Nona Lim as a brand was born in 2014.
Well, I'm a big fan, I have to tell you. And I know I said that a couple times, but our listeners don't know that reaching out to Nona Lim was a very, for me, was personal, not just for essential ingredients and next gen chef, but on a personal level. I've been eating and drinking Nona Lim for a while now. I found you, I think, when I went to the fancy food show, and then, of course, when I shopped in my local markets, and buying your broth and your noodles after having tried so many of them and having studied at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine and learning about Chinese medicine and learning about the herbs. I'm really interested in companies building better for you products. So talking to you for me is very personal, because I really am excited to chat and learn more about how you built a business that's rooted in Chinese medicine, that's creating something that's delicious, and allowing our listeners to be able to understand the impact they can have by enjoying something, but also understanding how this product can help them and be something that's healthy for them, better for them, and combining the two so that they can enjoy and have something that's healthy, so that it's a combination. And so I'm so excited that you've built something that combines those two values, excuse me, that combines those two values. And this podcast allows people to really get that information directly from you, so that people can make more informed choices and better understand why they're making those choices. So, you've talked a lot about your roots and what inspired you to do this. And that's so great. And I think it gives them a sense about that. And I just would love to be able to dig a little bit deeper into that and talk about the impact you're trying to create on the future of food. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what you see for that through Nona Lim.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I was a big believer in kind of better for you or clean labor, right? Back when I was doing my meal kit days, before 2010. So really trying to pioneer that. And I think that for me, there are quite a couple of things that are almost interesting or funny, which is, I like to be innovative. And so, I launched the very first packaged bone broth back in 2014, 2015,
Which
right
was your first bone broth that you launched?
the coconut lime
Oh,
chicken
and
bone
that's my favorite.
Exactly. right? So I did that at a time where before even the Broth article came out in New York Times, before it was even trendy.
And
Um,
Brodo was my favorite in New York, by the way. We just interviewed them last week.
yeah, no, it's a great product. I think it's a great product. So I launched that, and at that time, nobody knew what it was, right? And I would have retailers going, "What is it? Why is it twice the price of Pacific? What do you mean it's not in the shelf stable set? You mean you could just you don't make gravy with it?" So there was a lot of education that was needed upfront, and I'm grateful that at that time Whole Foods was a big supporter, and was willing to take a chance on me. And so then, fast forward 2 years later in 2017, if you go to Expo West, the big trade show for a lot of food companies, pretty much everywhere you turn, you could find kind of like a bone broth brand,
Mhm.
right? So I'm happy to know that I have kind of led the way a little bit in some of those big trends, and likewise in when I first started, I was probably one of the few kind of clean label, authentic Asian brand out there. And if you look at it today, just 2020, there are now so many other brands that have come along. So to me, I think that that to me is very it gives me a sense of, I don't know, like satisfaction that I was able to maybe pave the way for some of this. And I feel like
You're a leader in the industry.
kind of, which is, I did have not really thought of myself that way, but yeah, because I like to be the innovator, and I'm glad to know that um, it's good when you see a lot of other companies coming along, that I've tried to create a little bit of a category so that it's now becoming more accessible.
Mhm.
And my long-term goal is to be that leader, in kind of authentic, great tasting, better for you, uh, Asian food products, making it much more accessible to mainstream Americans. And now that I'm seeing so many up and coming brands uh, there as well, it helps create a category. And so I'm very happy about that.
I also think that what you've done is create a healthy and better for you, which you did touch on, Asian brand. And, very often people don't think of Asian food as healthy. And when we go to Asian restaurants, there's a lot of sugar in it. There's a lot of different things that people put into the food. And so what you've done is create a category and really put a bar on that food, saying we're making this better for you Asian food. And as you expand, and I'll ask you about this later, is some new exciting things you have in the pipeline that allow this category to expand and allow it to grow in that better for you niche under the Asian category. So I think that it's going to be exciting and it's going to grow, and you really are leading that category and adding to it. So we've got some new exciting stuff from Nona Lim coming in the next portion of this podcast. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break for a advert from one of our sponsors. So stay with us, listeners. We have some exciting news. I want to thank today's sponsor, Next Gen Chef. Next Gen Chef feeds members with the knowledge and tools that they need to create concepts with purpose and succeed. If you're listening today, they are offering a 1-year subscription for any new founder that wants to participate at a special discounted rate. For more information, email team@nextgenchef.com. If you're interested in becoming a member or just a part of the community, email NextGenChef at team@nextgenchef.com. You can also follow them on Instagram at NextGenChef, as well as on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Thank you again, NextGen Chef, for making this podcast possible. Together, we can change the future of food. I want to welcome back our listeners. Welcome back, Nona. Excited to get started on the second portion of our podcast. And we're going to get into some of the new exciting stuff that Nona's doing. And I'm going to leave that portion for the end, keep you guys in suspense, and just maybe talk a little bit about and ask you a little bit about how COVID has impacted you and your brand and how you've been dealing with that in these times, because I'm sure it's been impactful.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have been impacted by COVID in many different ways. I think the first is that we manufacture our own products, certainly all the broth and all the liquid components. And so as a manufacturer, our very first responsibility is to keep our people safe.
Mhm.
Right. So I think that was something that we really had to go through and take care of. It was real. It was like making sure that people don't fall sick, people don't literally don't die, right?
Right.
And so that was a huge focus of ours. I think in kind of a March to July timeframe where we put in place a lot of different procedures, where we had to also make sure um, that our team felt safe coming to work. So that was a huge focus of ours. I am grateful that our team has stayed committed, and that the procedures that we've put in place have really kept everyone safe. I would say that early on there was definitely a little bit of trying to react to it, but now that then we got really in front of it and being very proactive about it, and we're not able to say that it's been going well
That's
on
good.
the operations front. That's good.
That's
I
good.
think it's yeah, and the second is from a sales perspective. Certainly I think we have a lot of products that are much more single serve, like the cups, and those were kind of our front runners prior to COVID, because everyone loves the convenience of being able to bring it to work. Maybe you drink it in the car and all that. So we definitely see a shift in the kind of product portfolio, which shifted to our consumers wanting to cook at home a lot more because of where we are today, right? Where we're not at work and all that. And so we definitely saw a shift in our product portfolio where our noodles for cooking at home or broths for cooking at home did much better. And we also saw a shift in our channel as well. I think our grocery channel was actually affected a little bit in the earlier months of the pandemic. We refrigerated products. So our products share space with the milk and the eggs and the bacon, right? All the more kind of basic necessities, commodities. And so we lost shelf space when distributors were prioritizing delivering the essentials. So that definitely affected our business as well. I think I'm grateful that we were able to pivot more to online, where our DTC did really well. It doubled compared to last year, where our online partners did really well as well. So now we're really kind of a fully omni-channel brand, which is something I would say is probably less common for a refrigerated product. But I'm glad that we were able to accomplish that. So those are the changes, and I think that I'm grateful that we have a strong team and a committed team that have done well throughout this 12 months or this 9, 10 months of change.
Is there any recommendations you would make? We get many new founders listening to these podcasts,
Mhm.
and I want to be able to share insights from founders like yourselves that have been doing this and have had some successes and equally some challenges that have come up, but that you've been able to successfully navigate. Is there anything you might recommend for them or to them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And things that I'm recommending, I probably learned the hard way. They're all mistakes that I've made, so so hopefully they can learn from they can benefit from my mistakes and not have to make the same mistakes themselves. I think the first is probably around product development. I think that many founders are passionate about products, and that's why we want to come into the food industry, whether we are a artisanal maker, whether we pivoted from kind of the corporate business world. Um, but we have to think about the entire commercial aspects of product development. And I didn't think of that, early on, all the way down to who are the consumers, where is it going to be merchandised, which category does it belong to, what's the price point, right? All of those things need to be taken into consideration. I didn't do that. I was just looking to create the best possible product originally. I learned the hard way that it can be challenging, especially if I'm creating a brand new category. Which buyer do you go to? I think for years I struggled with trying to figure out which category, which set I belong to. And you want to think about those upfront. It will save you a lot of work and a lot of struggles. So that's one big one. I think the second is really just financials. So you're really knowing your numbers, really, again, designing a product down to the unit economics. And think about not just top line, but really think about bottom line as well. I think that also in our industry, in the last, 5 years or so, maybe not last year and this year, but last 5 years, there was a lot of capital available from the venture groups and everything. And so there was kind of a rush and a race to try to get top line going, right? And sometimes at the expense of burning a lot more cash than we need to burn. And I think that there is something, I think this year is definitely a huge year of change, and people are probably already realizing that about the need to get to profitability. So I would say that, lots of other little ones, but those are two big ones that come
No,
to
I
mind.
think that those are
Yeah.
great. And I think that our listeners and our founders that are listening will really appreciate those takeaways as they start to build their business or even continue on their journey, because many times we are building from our passion and we get excited about it, and sometimes we just need to be brought back home to remember that some of these things have a process that we need to make sure that we go through. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure that as you built your business and you developed your recipe, you had a high bar for ingredients without compromising that flavor and the integrity of the roots that you were drawing from, which were your, the Asian ingredients, right? And the Asian and the Chinese medicine. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about that development process, if you would.
Absolutely. I think that I was actually trained well by my previous venture, right? With the whole meal kit delivery and with kind of the elimination diet, I developed hundreds and hundreds, at least, maybe 300-400 recipes. So I had to do so many of them very quickly, and I did them all myself, right? And so because of that, I think R&D becomes very easy for me, and having to learn to do them in a way that was clean labor, right? So by the time it came to kind of CPG, it wasn't something that was too challenging. I think that actually uh, trying to develop clean label Asian is not as easy as I thought, because like you mentioned, right, a lot of the ingredients may not be all that clean. So we're looking for things like broth bean paste or some other, more unique or more, not quite unique, but more Asian specific ingredients. They might come with preservatives or other things that we don't want to include. And so for me, when I look at product development, I think as much about what doesn't go in there as much as what goes in there,
Right.
right? So we look at our ingredients, and sometimes ingredients have sub ingredients, and we look carefully at the sub ingredients as well. So it is one of those where it has to fulfill so many different requirements. It has to fulfill the right taste profile that we're looking for, the right ingredient and sub ingredient list that we want, to fulfill our criteria, and then the nutritional value of that, and finally the pricing. Right? So all of those have to come together, and we look at all of that, and now we even incorporate and look at what consumers are looking for, and then even going down to understanding what the pricing architecture looks like, across all the different channels, because different retailers have different kinds of promotional requirements, whether it is what they call EDLP, everyday low price, or whether they play in a high-low way, with promotions, discounts. And so really trying to understand all of those upfront in the product development process is actually really important.
Mhm.
And it goes beyond just ingredients. I think that when I first started, it was very ingredient centric, and now I try to look at it much further downstream as well.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that that came up with, that took probably a lot of time and wisdom to come up with, because it's not necessarily intuitive.
No, not at all. And then of course there's the fun tasting part. Like I think we were doing our, Indian lentil soup. We must have had, 20 different variations right at the end, just playing with exactly how much spice you put in there. What is the balance of how much turmeric do you put in there versus how much cumin you put in there, and playing with that balance of spice, right? That tasting element that takes many, many, many iterations as well.
So I'm thinking that you're probably going to be doing some tastings where you need some help from some of your fans. So I'm offering my services to you.
Sounds great. We are looking for what I
Right?
call our VIP
I
fans.
can order or you can send, and we'll do little tastings.
Absolutely.
But I do have a question for you as I was listening, and I'm going back to our conversation when you were talking about some of the other brands and how you leaded this new category. And you know, there's bone broth from a variety of places, from Brodo to what is it, not baby broth. I forget the other one. There's a bunch of them though, right? I'm having a bit of a senior moment, even though I'm too young for that. But they're not all rooted in Chinese medicine, and they're not all rooted from, you know, the same core value. What are your thoughts on that? Because to me, bone broth, you know, I always knew it coming from Chinese medicine. But, you know, it's not that I get people make it from a variety of things. I used to always, honestly, I made chicken soup, you know, because we make it for the Jewish holidays. But my chicken soup is made of 5 pounds of chicken feet between you and me. Or between you, me, and everyone listening to this podcast. It's made with 5 pounds of chicken feet, carrots, and leeks, and lemon, and a variety of other things, garlic, and parsnip, and turnip, and all those things, which in essence is kind of like a bone broth because I have so much chicken feet in there. And I mean, obviously I take it out, but it's kind of a bone broth. It's not rooted in anything other than the fact that I think it tastes like great chicken soup. But then I circle back and I ask you, you know, a lot of people are making bone broth and it's not necessarily rooted in the whole Chinese medicine. So can you talk to me a little bit about that and the philosophy behind yours versus these, and you know, what that means for people in the category and how to better identify the differences between them?
No, absolutely. You know, the thing is that well, when I grew up, my mom used to make the black chicken with ginseng, right? So
You can
that
still find the black chicken here. I did that when I was in acupuncture school. I bought it in New York in Chinatown.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, sort of something that I grew up with, but of course, you know, it's not easily accessible here, and so you can't really make chicken bone broth with black chicken. I guess I am less of I'm not as much of a purist, and I do not judge. You know, I think there are many different ways. That's kind of the fun thing sometimes about America, right? It is such a um, innovative. It
Mhm.
doesn't cling on to tradition as much. You know, it likes to, as a country, you know, I think that people like to innovate. And I think that there's something cool about that, you know, but I think that when I look at it again, um, I know a lot that, you know, I'm sure you learned that too, whether in Oriental medicine or in kind of the functional medicine world, right? About the typical beef bone broth that you simmer for 48 hours and you put maybe a little bit of vinegar to try to extract the, you know, the collagen and all the nutrients, etc., from the bones. The thing is that with chicken bones are much smaller and thinner than beef bones, so you don't actually need as much time to extract all the goodness. And I don't think that you necessarily need vinegar to extract it. And so, you know, what can I say? You know, which is um, what I would comment on is probably as a consumer, you need to find what works for you. I mean, for me personally, I think taste is really important. You know, I've tasted different kinds of bone broths out there. You know, I think Brodo tastes fantastic. I love the flavor of that. A
Say I
few other,
like Roto too. I like
yeah,
the original one, and I like
mhm,
to put the mushrooms in it.
yeah,
You can't buy online. You have to get it there at Brodo in the kiosk. They haven't done that yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, and then you have, you know, you have I don't know, some bone broth that tastes like that you've taken leather, you've boiled it for a week, right? It doesn't taste very good. And so for me, that's why for me, I feel that taste is so important. It's one of the most important tenet to everything that we do,
Yeah,
right? It's not just better for you, it has to taste good.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think you know, I was more curious about sort of, you know, the medicinal aspect of it, I guess, and sort of, you know, I'm sort of enamored with the fact that, you know, I can look at this as food as medicine, and the fact that you are thoughtful enough to look at this and create ingredients that are medicinal or food as medicine. And, you know, some of these are warming and some of these are cooling and some of these are anti-inflammatory. And when I look at some of the other bone broths, I'm sure that they do that. It may not be intentional. It may just happen. And I was just curious about, you know, sort of where that falls in that category and how you can, you know, how consumers can look at those and make a choice. And maybe, you know, maybe they don't have to. Maybe it comes down to just choosing what tastes good.
Yeah, you know, I think that it's really interesting because as I'm trying to make kind of Asian food much more accessible, you know, like you mentioned, right? Sometimes in a lot of this, in our culture, in our home cooking, is actually really nutritious and really healthy. But when you look at the supermarket aisle, a lot of Asian products, they're filled with, unfortunately, with preservatives or additives, and they're just not that good for you. And so what I want to do is to, you know, is to create, is to elevate that, to say that you can have all these products that, you know, all these Asian products that you feel good eating, right? But the thing is, it's about how far you go, you know,
Right.
and how mainstream versus how niche and how on the edge. How far do you push the envelope? And so, you know, I have pushed the envelope in that, you know, we had a spicy Szechuan broth, which I love, but you know, that didn't get a huge following because it was too spicy. And then we have another one, which is another favorite of mine, which is a ginseng chicken bone broth, right? So it is made with chicken bone broth, and we added ginseng to it, and there is goji berry and there's some ginger.
Good.
It's amazing. The goji berry gives it some natural sweetness and it's healthy, good for you, all these super foods. But it just didn't. A lot of my Asian American friends, the Koreans love it, right? Because it tastes very similar to samgyetang, which is a dish that you have in Korean cuisine. You know, my Hong Kong friends or people who are like Asian Chinese or American Chinese love it because they're familiar with the flavor. But a lot of mainstream Americans, depending on what they're familiar with, they may or may not be familiar with the flavor of ginseng, which has that bitter herbaceousness, you know, at the back of your throat, and they might not be used to it. And so it had a I would say a small niche following, and I just couldn't get it on shelves. You know, retailers just didn't see it as something that would be
Right.
big enough to carry on shelves, right? So because of that, you know, I end up discontinuing it sometime I think last year. Right, I'm sad. We still have a little bit left. You can still get the remnants over here and
I
there.
want to, you know, the spicy one that you said, I think I want to get one of those here and one sent to my dad because it sounds almost like a hot and sour kind of soup-ish. The fact that it's like spicy, I think I know people that would like that.
Oh no, at trade shows we meet people who love it, who are passionate about it, but just there's not enough of them to for retailers to want to keep it on shelves, right? And so for me, it's kind of that's why it's a fine balance of, you know, how much do you introduce and when. And it goes back to the lessons that I learned, right, when I created meal kit, the whole category more than a decade ago, way too early. And so for me now, it's a little bit about, you know, just understanding when is the right time to, how far do you stretch that envelope, you know, and when do you stretch it?
Well, to your point, you know, what my biggest takeaway right now is just that it's not about maybe getting people to realize that this is food as medicine, but just that this is a healthy, accessible Asian food and that you can have Asian food that is healthy for you, as opposed to healthy food that is filled with sugars and all sorts of unhealthy food. And I think that's the first step. And then we can get to the other steps, but this is the first barrier. And I think you're doing an amazing job with that. And of course, I'm just getting nitpicky and saying, well, this is food as medicine and this is healthy and let's go a step further. But just because I'm there doesn't mean the rest of the world is. So so I think you've got it down. So I think,
I
and
learned it the hard way.
the hard way. We have somebody here that, well, our listeners can't see, but we have somebody here that wants to join us. So, and for those listening, it's a dog that wanted to join us. But so as we're just wrapping up here, just a couple other questions and things that I just want our listeners to just learn a little bit further. can you share with us just a little bit? Maybe you've added something, or the favorite thing, your favorite pandemic recipe that you're doing with one of your noodle dishes, because I know you eat them 12 different ways, and you call it your kitchen sink. Or is it is that what you're calling it? Your kitchen sink noodle or something?
Yeah, everything but a kitchen sink.
Everything but a kitchen sink. Maybe you can just share with us, your favorite recipe that you're making these days with your broth and or your noodles.
Yeah, no, for sure. I always keep my noodles and my broth handy in my fridge or freezer so that when I have no time, it just makes an easy meal, right? So, I love my the pad thai noodles. My daughter's favorite is the pad see ew noodle, which is the wider one. But it's so easy to have that with just the broth, like our coconut lime broth. And you can throw whatever you want in there. Sometimes we could have leftover chicken from, the weekend, or we could just have vegetables and we just put it in. So that's like a simple meal that takes 10 minutes. That is almost, as quick as if you were to get, I don't know, a microwave food, right? But it's so much healthier for you. And stir fries as well is the big thing for me, with the noodles especially. Literally, it could be as simple as whatever is in our fridge. And we could say, oh gosh, I have nothing in my fridge. I happen to have some bacon. And I can fry it with something, anything, right? Or some onions or some celery, or I could have, some shiitake mushrooms with me, and some yuba strip, or tofu. And so it's one of those where I literally just dice up whatever is left over in my fridge that's available. I'll saute it and then I'll throw the chicken in and I'll put in a little bit of sauce. I might have some like dark soy sauce or something. So that's how, that to me could be a quick meal. Literally, it's as quick as sometimes it becomes like a school lunch when she was going to school, or it could be something we eat for breakfast or something we eat for dinner. So that's how versatile it is. It's just something that,
I have to tell you, I mean, I keep them in my fridge, and every now and again I'll make like a batch of Thai curry or something, like green
yeah,
curry sauce, and I'll put it in there, and I'll make my curry sauce in a way, it's not completely curry, it's my version of curry.
yeah,
So I can use it as salad dressing, soup, or on noodles.
exactly. You can pour it over noodles. Yeah. In fact, I sometimes we would have, we order from um, daughter's kitchen down in Montclair, which is, and they have, we'll get some Thai food from them, right? Support small local, restaurants and all. And I have some leftover, and I can use the leftover green curry and put noodles on it, and that's kind of lunch. And so the noodles to me are just so versatile. They are like a staple, like rice, or
Right. So
potato.
it's everything but the kitchen sink, like you said. So for anyone that's listening, literally go into your refrigerator, take out all the vegetables you forgot to eat before they go bad, cut them up, saute them, and throw them into the pan with your Nona, your Nona noodles, right?
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I'm saying. Okay. Alrighty. So the last thing I want you to share, I'd love you to share with our listeners here is your new exciting news, because we started chatting about this before we got on. And I'm super excited for you to share it because it expands the category of healthy Asian food. It expands your line and your SKUs, and it's new for the new year, and it's new for everyone here. So it's something special that you're going to announce, and it's something special that our audience can get excited about and participate in and even support you in. So with that build up, right? Quite a build up here.
Yes.
Anna, will you share with us how everybody,
Absolutely,
okay,
absolutely. So we're launching our stir fry kits. Especially with the pandemic, so many people are cooking at home a lot more, and we just want to expand, our consumers' repertoire, right? After a while, you kind of get sick of your spaghetti, your pizza, maybe your tacos, and you want to cook something. And so we want to make it much more accessible and easier, for you to have a stir fry noodles at home. We're launching on Kickstarter on January 4th, our stir fry kits. So, we're starting with our pad thai stir fry kit and the teriyaki ramen stir fry kit. It just makes it so much more convenient for you to do a stir fry at home. Like if you're doing a pad thai noodle, if you're going to get the pad thai sauce from scratch, you have to get your tamarind, your fish sauce, and all different things, and you might not use them again, or if you have a big jar of sauce, You know, if you don't use them again, you stick them in the pantry, they just go bad. And so with the stir fry kit, it's like you have your noodles and you have just the right amount of sauce. So all you need to do now is whatever ingredients you feel like having. And what's exciting about this is that we've made both of them plant-based. So it's even more, accessible for everyone and anyone, whatever you want. And the pad thai kit is also gluten-free as well, which is a big plus, because I've been eating gluten-free for a lot of my life here in the US until, I I'm not celiac, so once in a while I would suffer and eat non-gluten or eat gluten products, but I try to eat gluten-free most of the time. And so our pad thai stir fry kit is gluten-free. And so we're launching on the Kickstarter project, a Kickstarter for just 2 weeks from January 4th to January 20th. And, the early birds can get as much as 35% discount on the kits. So
And how much
definitely,
is the kit's going to be?
sorry?
How much are the kits going to be?
Oh, at retail, it's going to be about $7.99 and for 2 adult servings. So
Okay,
you're going to get 2 packs of noodles and 2 packs of sauce. I think that's really good value because now for $8,
right.
you have it's enough for 2 adults. Or in our household, we have 2 adults and an 8-year-old, and it's enough for all three of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so you're going to give us a link that's going to go live on January 4th, and we're going to throw that in the show notes. So everyone
Yeah.
listening here, that is going to be in the show notes. So not to worry. So this is going to go live and it's going to be in the show notes, so you won't be able to miss it. And you're going to be able to access the special discount that will be on Kickstarter. So when you go onto Kickstarter and you buy your noodles at the discount, how long does it take to get your noodles?
That's a very good question. We should be able to start shipping in February.
Okay,
Uh,
in February, so you won't have to wait long. Okay,
yes.
great. And is there a
If you can't wait, you can always buy our current noodles without the kids. And that will ship in like 2 days, 3 days.
okay, and um how oh sorry, so sorry. Okay, so they can get their noodles, they'll ship them, and how long will they stay good for?
These noodles are pasteurized, so they stay good for quite some time, for like months, for at least, 3 months in your fridge. And if you really want to, you can freeze them. But honestly, I think that you should be able to get through them.
Okay, so for those folks that have not gotten Nona Lim before and want to go out and buy Nona Lim, where can they find Nona Lim?
We are found in, I would say, some retail like Whole Foods, Select, Target, and Walmart, and some local groceries. But I would recommend going online. It's definitely the easiest and the best. nonalim.com. You can buy our products and we ship nationwide.
Great, wonderful. Well, I know that I am going to try to run to Molly Stone's again and see what I can get if they haven't moved it again or hidden it from me again, because I keep having to go track it down in the shop. I'm going to go talk to their manager for you, see if
Thank you.
I can work something out with them. At least put a sign up so that we can know where to find you. In any case, and I want to thank our listeners for joining us, and thank you, Nona, for joining us. And for me, this was really special because I'm a big fan of your product. I was so curious about your journey, and I really appreciate you sharing it from the beginning to where you are today, from fencing to food, from Singapore to London to here, and all through your journey. And it's really impressive and so moving how you've incorporated building a better for you brand, and from building sustainable packaging to making healthy food and building a whole category for yourself that now has followers and new brands in it that are following suit. So I hope this has been inspirational and aspirational for other founders out there. And I hope it's been educational for consumers so that they can make more informed choices. So again, thank you for joining me. Thank you to our listeners. And if you like this conversation, I hope you'll subscribe to the Essential Ingredients channel. I hope you'll download this episode, and if you like this, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. If you want to hear more like this, leave us a note. Tell us if there's anything in particular you want to hear, and continue to follow along. thank my guests and my listeners for joining me today at Essential Ingredients. If you like this episode and you want to make sure not to miss any others, please subscribe. You can find us on all the large channels, including iTunes. And I hope that you'll make sure to follow us and share it with your friends. For more information about Essential Ingredients, you can check out the website justinereichman.com. You can follow myself on Instagram and Facebook at Justine Reichman. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Next Gen Chef and the platform that powers this podcast, you can find us at nextgenchef.com, on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media outlets. I hope to hear from you and see you again soon.